Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Scarpino, and I'm the Director of AI and Life Sciences at the Institute for Experiential AI at Northeastern University. I'm excited to tell you more about what we're doing at Northeastern at the intersection of AI and life sciences. And then we'll have an interview with the founder and CEO of a company called System that is working actively to enhance our capacity to study living systems and translate them into new therapeutics, new treatments, diagnostics, etc. The vision is for Northeastern University and the Institute for Experiential AI to become the global nexus for AI life sciences research, training, and entrepreneurship. We're fortunate to have a diverse array of faculty members across our international network of campuses working along the continuum from wet lab biologists applying AI to their systems to computational biologists and pure AI researchers developing new theory and algorithms. Northeastern University is a world leader in experiential learning and collaboration across industries. We have the #1 ranked co-op internship program globally and are consistently ranked among the most innovative universities. Over the past 3 years, we have had the fastest grant portfolio in terms of growth of any of the major R1 universities in the United States, and have a network of over 3,000 corporate partners spanning the entire globe, where we place co-ops from the undergraduate to the master's and PhD level in experiential learning programs that involve both learning for the student and value for the industry partner. Briefly, I want to set the stage for where AI and life sciences sits today to illustrate some of the ways in which we're engaging with partners at Northeastern University. I think probably the most obvious is that AI and life sciences in particular, and in comparison to many other verticals, is poised to accelerate. I'm showing a figure here from a recent KPMG survey of AI across industries. And I want to highlight the section on the far right, the fully functional at scale AI versus the bar in the middle, the moderately functional, comparing tech in the top row to life sciences in the second row. And note how a bulk of the life sciences right now are at either the limited pilot or moderately functional capabilities with respect to AI, meaning that there's a huge amount of substrate and an opportunity to transform across the industry with taking these AI tools from the proof of concept stage into fully functional models running in production. However, there are concerns about the pace of adoption. So this is from the same survey asking the % of business leaders who think that the pace is too fast in their sector. And notice how life sciences and retail are towards the top, with nearly 50% of business leaders who were polled having concerns about the pace of adoption. What this means is that there is a great need for education and strategy development to ensure that poor decisions made now don't lock businesses into long-term challenges as this rapidly developing landscape around AI, in particular as it pertains to life sciences, unfolds. This almost goes without saying, but we're witnessing a proliferation of tools and algorithms. Again, from the same survey, just asking business leaders when they hear artificial intelligence, what do they think or what do they mean when they say it? And it spans the continuum from natural language processing and image recognition to broad buckets of machine learning, automated processing with robotics, deep learning, anomaly detection, and chatbots. And so in the face of this rapid adoption, we also have a nearly unprecedented proliferation of tools and algorithms. Concerns about cybersecurity, ethical use, and bias, of course, pervade the AI landscape, but in particular, as it pertains to life sciences, present a number of unique challenges. One of them is highlighted by this review paper on the risk of prognostic models incorporating bias as we use machine learning to improve things like precision oncology. And on top of all this, investors in the space tend to be less experienced, and the decisions they're faced with are often more complex. So a recent study published in Stat News suggested that around 85% of biotech investors have been in the field for less than a decade, and that biotech is so technically complex in terms of evaluating the opportunities, the pipelines, the time it's going to take to go to market, that we hear from investors that the subset of what you need to know is so large that many investment groups are effectively locked out of biotech investing because they don't have the necessary expertise in-house, and they don't have the network to go out and find it. At Northeastern University, we have over 90 core and apply artificial intelligence faculty. 70 of those are working at the intersection of AI and life sciences. We have an AI solutions hub that has data scientists and engineers who are focused on delivering value to your organization, and an ethical and responsible AI practice that we integrate across all projects. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, our experiential education program and global footprint allows us to provide in-person executive education, custom employee upskilling, and the co-op opportunities that I mentioned. We engage with partners across 5 broad areas. The first is with talent acquisition by placing co-ops into your organization. These individuals are at the undergraduate level and increasingly the master's and PhD level. Upskilling employees with existing and custom coursework. Sponsored research projects that advance proof of concept to demonstrate and validate tools that will be quickly translated into production models. Ethical and responsible AI, from audit and evaluation to development and incorporation of algorithms into tools, and evaluation of AI models running in production, vendor partner landscape, investment opportunities, and AI models that may already be running at the proof of concept phase. Across Northeastern, we have existing research and application areas in a broad array of spaces in the life sciences, from identifying novel biomolecules and toxicity prediction in the drug discovery space, to integration of multiomic data and partitioning of diseases based on biomarkers and systems biology, application of large language models to prediction of function from genomic data, analyzing data in biobanks, developing new courses and talent pipelines, and tightly integrating wet labs into the loop of AI in such a way that we could go from years to bring antibodies into early stage clinical testing down to months, that we can bring high throughput single cell metabolomics directly to the point of care, and that we can leverage directed evolution for novel enzyme discovery and refinement. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Adam Bly, the CEO and co-founder of System, who's going to join me for the second part of the webinar to discuss what he sees as the biggest challenges and opportunities in the space, and how System is poised to help us address them. Thanks for joining, Adam.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Adam, do you want to start off just by telling us a little bit about System, and also maybe a little bit about your background? I know that you've got quite a bit of experience in this space, and this is not your first data rodeo.
Sure. So our mission at System is to represent the world as one complex interconnected system, to organize knowledge and data to reflect the true interconnected nature of the world. And we're using AI to go and extract, identify evidence for how things relate, whether statistically, mechanistically, causally in the world, and assemble it all into a new type of platform that powers greater systems-based solutions and understanding of the world's complex challenges. And that could be in the world of health, at the level of disease or public health, or as we continue to expand into other areas of knowledge, in areas from climate change to education to social justice. Because we see these all as one system, ultimately what we're trying to do is relate everything to help the world see and solve anything as a system. My own background starts in life sciences and working in wet labs, working on cancer and genetics, starting a science magazine looking to contemporize science's place in society, founding a data analytics company, working with governments and large organizations around the world on the sort of first generation of their data and algorithmic products. I subsequently sold that company to Spotify and spent some time leading data at Spotify and really having a front row seat to the major changes in data and AI from the standpoint of a large tech company. And generally have been very focused through time at Harvard, at the Kennedy School, and elsewhere on the role of science in society, the role of scientific thinking, and how the tools that we're talking about today can really advance more evidence-based, more systems-based solutions.
Great. I really like that you and I both share this background where we started off as kind of life sciences students and, spending time in the lab, and then kind of took a bit of a winding journey, or at least my journey was a bit winding, and found ourselves back, not specifically focused on life sciences, but having that be a major component of the work that we're doing. I'm curious, with all your experience, both in and outside of life sciences, do you see specific challenges or new opportunities in this space that kind of made it the right time to do what you're doing at System, especially in the health and life sciences arena?
Yeah, I think it's I kind of come at this from two angles. First is from the standpoint of the data, and I'd say the other is from the standpoint of our understanding of the world and the challenges we're facing. So from the standpoint of the data, I think a major outcome of the last call it decade or so of the data revolution is that, one, we have more data about more things, simply put, and obviously movement towards interoperable open standards that allow for integration of those previously diverse sort of discrete data sources. So more of it, more open and more interoperable, and I think like a general recognition that, given sort of cost of storage being what it is and continue to go down, there's really no reason when it comes to sort of the life sciences and generally population health, so putting personal health considerations aside, to assemble more and to create more and more standards for more and more interoperability. And so all of those vectors seem to be moving at the right, in the right direction. And I think it's a really exciting moment to recognize that we have a lot of this material and we have emerging standards of interoperability. On the other side, I think what, when I would talk to folks about my vision for System 5 years ago, and when I compare that to the conversations I would have either during COVID or following the pandemic, it was a sort of sea change in kind of public attitudes within the research community, within the academic community, within the funding community, and within tech. So whereas before, the notion that the biggest challenges we face are systemic, and that the only way to understand and tackle and intervene in a systems problem is to actually see the whole system, was heresy, or at least just like an idea whose time has not yet come. And now I think what COVID was the turning point for us to recognize as a world, not just as sort of a research community or scholarly community or tech community, that the way we organize data and information and knowledge today impedes research and care. And we need to fundamentally shift our lens, our architecture from silos to systems at this kind of quite critical moment in global public health, which ultimately extends down into the life sciences and the demands we have on life sciences to address key issues in population health and public health.
Absolutely. And I think that that's such an important point, and perhaps I don't know if it's a positive, but at least it's an outcome that I think will matter from COVID, which is, as you said, pointing out to so many people around the planet the interconnected nature of all of life, from cells to society, and the necessity to intervene at the system level. You mentioned data. I have some slides here. Do you want to just tell us? I mean, it's, you sort of have to squint a little bit to see this, which I think is probably part of the point, but what are we looking at here?
So over the last number of years, what we've been working on at System is this new architecture for information. And it starts with understanding how everything in the world is related based on verified evidence, and assembling that evidence in a form of, you can think of it as a form of meta-analysis that comes from having quite structured data rigorously extracted using AI and then assembled using well-established methodologies to learn how things are related. What you're seeing in front of you is sort of some early explorations on our part now that we've reached quite critical mass in terms of the volume of information and the complexity of the information that we've assembled. Are some systems maps where what you're seeing are millions of nodes representing determinants of health, interventions, disease outcomes, social outcomes. So really like the full gamut of potential topics across health and life sciences at every resolution, from the cellular to the population. Linked together based on a statistical finding or causal finding extracted using AI from biomedical literature. And so unlike any effort at knowledge graphs or assembling information into networks up until now, the basis for relating information here is not semantic. So it's not based on terms essentially co-occurring in text, for example. It's not based on anything of that sort. It's really based on identifying key findings in the literature and extracting it at a resolution that allows for this kind of assembly. And so the point of what you're seeing is for us to start to make this information available ultimately to researchers, to clinicians, to policymakers, to be able to understand and see the whole system and then identify the most effective interventions that may not be obvious to have the greatest possible outcome on a patient's life, on a population's health.
So maybe walk me through a sort of specific but can be hypothetical example. So I've had the chance to use System Pro. It's really exciting to type in, you know, a set of gene names based off of an analysis we've run that have, you know, kind of popped up to the top, and find all of the different studies that have been published and receive summaries of how they're interconnected. I know that's one of the use cases that you've envisioned, but I imagine that sort of you expect the endpoint for that to be maybe even closer to the point of care or the delivery of novel therapeutics. Maybe just sort of walk me through, like, you know, over the next 3 to 5 years, what do you believe people are going to be doing with System?
Yep. So ultimately, what we aim to do is bring the power of seeing the whole system to the point of decision making, and whether that point of decision making is in the lab, in the hospital, in the voting booth, in the boardroom, where have you. Today, we lack the ability to leverage a full systems view of a topic to know what it is we should be measuring, which specialists we should bring in to consider this patient's health. What is the most effective intervention as a payer to have the best possible outcome on a population health? What is potential new targets for improving a disease outcome in a population? So these are the kinds of questions that searching information today and assembling information based on language simply doesn't respond to, right? So searching Google for those kinds of questions and then assembling the information based on the language that's used to describe the material simply doesn't answer those questions. And so we need this new type of architecture to be able to even move into that space. And so today, one of our first applications built on top of the platform is as you noted, called System Pro, where we're trying to improve how researchers, biomedical researchers, life scientists, and all the way through to medicine, assemble all the literature, all the knowledge about a particular topic of interest to them, either to their research or to clinical care. And what System is doing is, because we've extracted all of these millions of pieces of structured data from the unstructured biomedical corpus, we can assemble all of those bits of information in a far more accurate, reliable, and transparent way than sort of classical today, sort of generative AI, where you're risking not only hallucination, but not preserving any provenance to the underlying source material. And so because of System's novel architecture, the generative applications built on top of the graph allow for very high fidelity citation of the primary source that's being used in generating a synthesis for a researcher or clinician, but also we're able to synthesize the actual data itself and begin to move in the direction of generative meta-analyses. And so we're really excited about the power of the data that we're extracting, as well as the graph structure, to help our end users see that whole system, surface insights that they didn't know to look for, look at causal chains that may exist that might be potential targets for intervention, but also just save a tremendous amount of time synthesizing and reading through literature that they possibly would not have known to go to be able to answer their question. On top of that, yeah, as you note, exactly, we're really interested in how the platform can get closer and closer to the point of decision making as well, even outside of the lab. We did some work with the Gates Foundation last year, looking at and prototyping applications in infectious disease, looking at applications in malaria, for example, where what we were prototyping, and you can sort of imagine applications for this in all sorts of spaces, is based on System's assembly of the malaria system. So all of the upstream determinants, all the potential interventions and the effects of those interventions, the strength and the effect of different determinants, from precipitation to farming populations to socioeconomic status to, of course, biological indicators, and then all the way through to outcomes of heightened malaria prevalence in the country. How can we then start to look at those indicators, those metrics that now we know are all part of one system: maternal health metrics, nutrition metrics, demographic metrics, crime metrics, all the things that we wouldn't have known to assemble as part of a system if you're a public health agency, for example. How can we assemble all of those together and now monitor malaria as a system? And that's potentially very interesting as you're imagining looking at patient health, looking at population health, looking at a country, not as a set of semantically gathered metrics about the disease, but as a whole system view of it.
Yeah. Yes, and I expect it. I mean, one of the other aspects, and you sort of alluded to this, is just that the scale and scope of information is beyond what any one individual can process. I think it was something like a new COVID-19 paper every 15 minutes throughout the pandemic. And during that same time period, there would have been a new paper on CRISPR every hour or so. And that for me has been one of the most important near-term use cases for system. And that's helping to train students to think in a systems perspective, but also just to learn how vast and interconnected the literature on any one of these topics are, in such a way that it doesn't cause panic, but allows them to actually learn and gain that valuable skill set around synthesizing the literature and identifying relevant questions to ask. So the lead in here is kind of, one of the things we do at Northeastern is research. The other thing that we do is education. What opportunities do you see with system on the educational front? And then maybe just touch a bit on kind of, you're doing a lot of hiring right now. What are the things that you wish we were doing a better job at as a university system, not just Northeastern, but globally across all universities, at kind of training the next generation of worker for companies like yours?
Yeah, totally. I was, within the education context, I was speaking to a colleague who's a professor at Harvard recently, and he was saying, so credit goes to him on this idea. He was saying, I would love to have students, at any university starting a new course, to recognize that what we may be kind of zooming in on over the coming semester as a set of topics or areas lives within this broader context that you'll be studying over the course of your educational career, or even over the course of a semester, and be able to preserve an ongoing sense of context for what we're seeing through one angle of study, or through sort of one discipline, always preserving that sense of context. So almost, if you think about it as a map, how do we always keep the full sense of context as we are accumulating new facts and insights about our topic of study? And so I think if we can evolve education to always be preserving the sense of the system, and almost be seeking to assemble a system from the topics that are of interest to us. I would almost argue that what we ought to be driving toward, and sort of a skill development that we should be encouraging, is to hold the notion that everything that matters is a system. And so our goal should be to assemble as many parts of that system as possible in order to reach the truest characterization of it. Not to sort of start with a topic and then hope to hop to the next one, and hope to hop to the next one, and then eventually maybe some patterns will emerge and you'll see that these things are connected, but to start instead from that characterization, which has long been expressed by scientists, by humanists, by artists for centuries, but we haven't had the technology up until right now to be able to actually live with these systems and constantly be accessing information in a manner that helps us model and map these systems. And so that's super exciting. I think we're at a turning point right now where we can shift from a truly siloed, sort of accumulation of siloed-based education, to the pursuit of systemic understanding. And the consequence of that is that we start to graduate and develop practitioners in health, in law, in policy, in science, in journalism, who are trained to seek systemic understanding. And I think that's maybe the most important skill that we now need to be developing, given, frankly, the state of the world and the biggest challenges we face. To not see climate change as a system, to not see COVID as a system, is to deny the true nature of the challenges and threats we face in the world. From the industry side, I think that these are the kinds of skills that we seek at System is, beyond obviously developing great skills in statistics and kind of the building blocks of data science and machine learning. We're seeking systems thinkers who have the capacity to not only do the critical thinking that has been so important to the last kind of wave of education, but have the capacity to kind of zoom out and hold the forest and the trees in their minds at the same time as they tackle a problem. It's extremely hard to do that, but I think that skill is what's needed to build systems that, for example, are aware of potential unintended consequences, ethical implications of the whole system, and then zoom in on the particularities of bias in the training data. And so unless you can hold both of those resolutions in your mind, we're simply not going to have the engineers and practitioners in technology who are able to help pioneer a more ethical forefront of AI.
In my experience, that's one of the biggest things that students at Northeastern learn when they go on co-op, and this is true even at the master's and PhD level, is kind of how to pick your head up and see the whole system and understand more about why it is that we're doing the things that we're doing, and why it is that some of the things that we've learned in the classroom matter so much, but in that context dependent way. Adam, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a really wonderful conversation. We'll have contact information for you and for System up on the screen, but if folks are interested in getting engaged or testing out System Pro, what's the best way to go forward with that?
We'd invite them to go to system.com.
All right. Thank you all very much for joining me. If you're interested in learning more about what we're doing at Northeastern University in AI and life sciences, please scan the QR code. We have a 2-page description that highlights many of the things I discussed today, from our educational and research opportunities to talent upskilling and AI model evaluation. If you're looking for data sets, we have lots of them across the Northeastern system and across our broader collaborator network. We're happy to put you in touch with folks in our system. And thanks again, Adam, for joining me. It was a real pleasure.
My pleasure.